Not in the video. You would be good. Non, mais c'est très agaçant, mais j'ai pas pris le truc. Ça, c'est pas grave. Anaïs. Anaïs, I think, is the fourth time, the third year. Is it possible? I think it's been 4 times.
Yes. It's always very powerful.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes. I agree.
Baruch Hashem. Is that Anaïs has a, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot, but Leaina, I know you love that. I'm sorry. But she has such a special energy. Okay. I'm sorry. With the years, I got older. I can't see anything. Ah non, mais c'est enregistré. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to tell you, I don't know how this class will be, because every year when I prepare something, I never do what I prepared. But there is something always very special that happens here. And I think it's because of the personality of Anaïs and Ben, who make so much space for others and who really love others with their heart. That when we come here in this house, there is such a feeling of it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to open up, that every year something happens. So I don't know what's going to happen today, but Bezrat Hashem, it's very special. I want to thank Anaïs for opening her house, for giving me the opportunity to be there today on that very special day, and for being a very good friend, a supporter of everyone here, I guess, because I know that it's not only for me, it's for everyone. Thank you for being our friends. Thank you really for being in our hearts. And you're such an example of what a true friend is, really. So thank you. Thank you so much. And that's it. Let's go. Okay, so I still cannot get to the progressive, so I'm sorry. I'm going to put them on and off. So today we are going to dedicate this class for Chana Bat Aziza and Raphael Chaim Shlomo, Bezrat Hashem, and we're going to speak about Parashat Behar, Bechukotai. It's a double parasha, because sometimes we add a month, and therefore, like, we read Behar, and then the following week we read Bechukotai. But this year we condense and we read, and usually, like, that's when the rabbi in shul starts reading super fast because they don't want to miss Kiddush, and they accelerate the pace. But it's very interesting because those two parashiot, one is speaking about Behar, so it's on the mountain, and Bechukotai, it's about the laws that are called chok, that we cannot really discuss. There's no explanation to them. So it seems to be very different subjects, and yet we're going to see today, Bezrat Hashem, that they are beautifully linked, and they have such a powerful message that that is going to I hope, Bezrat Hashem, inspire us and make us grow, because that's always what we want when we come to a Torah class, is, of course, to enjoy the company, to have a beautiful food, to bring in a purpose. And tonight is the elevation of the neshamot, but also to go back home with something, with food for thought. So, we're in the moment of the Omer, in the period of the Omer. During the Omer, It's a period where we count the days from Pesach until Shavuot. Pesach is the moment where we go out of Egypt, right? And we leave the state of slavery. We leave also the Eretz Mitzrayim, the land of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, which was representing whatever constraint us, whatever limits us, whatever keeps us away from being who we truly are. And Shavuot, 49 days after, 50 days after actually, represents Matan Torah, the gift of the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Har Sinai, on the mountain, right? And it's very interesting because basically each and every single day, we have a mitzvah to count the days, up from our state of slave to our state of the chosen people, Am Israel. This is the moment where we prepare to be Am Israel. And I think since October 7th, we have cried, we have laughed, we have screamed, we have sang Am Israel Chai with all our hearts in different moments, right? With tears in our eyes or joy in on our face. But what does it mean, Am Israel Chai? It means that at one point, Am Israel is eternal. And we have to understand that concept of what it means to be Am Israel. And to be Am Israel, we have to climb up a mountain, to climb up the mountain of ourselves, to be the better version of ourselves. You know, like we say, like we have to elevate ourselves. That's what we're supposed to do in order to keep up the good job of Am Israel and to make it eternal. So this is the period where we are right now, the Sefirat HaOmer. And our parasha is called Behar, which is on the mountain. And during that parasha, we're going to speak about the mitzvah of Shemitah. Have you heard about the mitzvah of Shemitah? Yeah? Anybody wants to share?
It's the 1 year when you don't touch the earth, that it really regrows fresh.
Exactly. So for 6 years, we're going to sow the dirt, the earth. We're going to work on it. We're going to harvest it. We're going to live with the fruits of the earth, of the land. And then on the 7th year, we're going to rest. The land is going to rest. And we're not going to be able nor to plant, nor to work the dirt, nor to benefit from the fruits of those or the vegetables of this vegetation, which means the Shemitah is the year where you leave really your bitachon. Because imagine for millennials, people were living from what they would plant. But for 1 year, you're not allowed to touch your land. How are you going to eat? Okay. And I think it's very interesting. Yeah.
But do all the farms have the same 6 years and 7, or they alternate? So the whole country has
there's exactly. There is a Shemitah. Yeah, it's like Shabbat. It's not that I have the Shabbat on Tuesday and you have the Shabbat on. It's the Shabbat of the land, basically. The entire country.
Was it last year?
The entire world.
Only Israel.
In Israel.
Only in Israel.
The entire country of Eretz Israel, because all the laws of the land are linked to Eretz Israel. Okay.
Are they allowed to sell the production to other countries?
So it does happen today that
everybody
no. Sometimes there's always ways like to navigate, but the law per se is that during 1 year you're not supposed to touch it. Today, as you said, like you can import potatoes. Like I remember, I grew up in a family where we would live in Paris during the week, but on Sunday we had a family country house where we would go. It was 30 minutes away from Paris, and it was in the middle of the fields. And I remember that they would plant potatoes. And one year, so my grandfather was religious. He wore a kippah. And one year, there's a country guy, like, how do you call it? Like a peasant, who comes to my grandfather and he says, you know, thanks to you, the price of my potatoes have doubled. And so my grandfather said, why thanks to me? And he said, because you are Israeli. And so my grandfather said, yeah, he's not Israeli per se, but Israel is his country. And he said, well, this year, because your country cannot produce, because of the Shemitah, I can sell my potatoes. I have extra potatoes, so Baruch Hashem. So my grandfather said, you know, even thanks to the Shemitah, even in France, in the middle of nowhere, there is a guy who sees the light of Israel. Isn't that beautiful? It's true. Today, I don't know what they think, because unfortunately the media took over, like that was in the 1980s. But today the media took over the fame of Israel in another way. So I don't know how they would feel about selling their potatoes to Israel or not. But anyways, so what is the relation between the Shemitah and the mountain? You could ask. And it's a question that Rashi asked himself in this parasha. And he says, well, you know what's the link between the mountain and the Shemitah is that when you are in front of a beautiful mountain, imagine you are it's very difficult to imagine because here we don't have any mountains, right? But imagine tomorrow you wake up, Anaïs, and you see in the middle of the Gulf a mountain. Don't you want to climb up the mountain to see the view from the mountain? Yes. No? When you see a beautiful view, a beautiful mountain in the middle of a landscape, usually you're like, wow, how beautiful it must be to see where I live from that mountain, from the top of that mountain. So basically it's an invitation. A mountain is an invitation to elevate yourself, to raise yourself, right? And Hakadosh Baruch Hu tells us, like, you know, I invite my dearest people on that mountain. The mountain, Har Sinai, for instance, was the mountain where we celebrated becoming the chosen people. So it was a very, very special moment where we were adopted, where we married Hakadosh Baruch Hu, right? So David HaMelech says, you know who is allowed to go on the top of that mountain to see that view from that mountain, to be closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you can elevate yourself and see the world through the eyes of Hashem. He says in Tehillim 24:3, he who has a pure heart and clean hands. And he also says, Karov Hashem lenishbere lev. Hashem is close to those who have a broken heart. So basically, who is on top of the mountain? Who is closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because that's what represents being on top of that mountain. The one who has a pure heart, the one who has clean hands, and we're going to see why the hands are so important later on. And the one who has a broken heart. What does it mean to have a broken heart? Anybody wants to speak?
If it was hurt, someone hurts.
Someone is hurt.
It means something's missing. When something was there, and then it was
Taken away.
Missing.
Or someone goes through a challenge.
Someone who went through a challenge.
Because it's been a months where in Israel we face something lost. So it's broken out even for people that are just from the country, even if they're not related family ones to
the person. It's true. It's true. So Rashi says this is where there is actually a link between the Shemitah and Har Sinai. A person who has a broken heart is the person who is experiencing in his life that everything slips away from his hands. He doesn't have the control over the loss of a person, a marriage that doesn't go well, a kid that doesn't have a good health, lo aleno. Anything that leads to a broken heart is actually experiencing the fact that things are slipping out of our hands. We do not have that control, right? And in Hebrew, even though that's not my strength, contrary to Italian, okay, it says, well, how do we say that something slips from your hand? Exactly, lehishamet, right? Lehishamet, which is also the same root as shemitah. Why? Because only lishamet, right? It means that only he who experiences a dry soil, that dryness, that sterility from the soil, can really feel close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Shemitah is the moment where a human being has to really rely totally in the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can you imagine? Who is working here? Well, I don't earn my life, but okay, who is working and making a living out of it, right? Imagine, I'm going to take you, Rosine, d'accord? You're a cardiologist, right? We tell you for 6 years you work. The 7th year, you're not allowed.
Sabbatical,
It's a sabbatical.
the best.
The best. But how much do you have? Imagine that you don't have a salary during 1 year. It's huge. You have to have a bitachon. You have to think, listen, during 6 years, I've been sowing that land. And we know that the land, what happens? It's full. Why is a land fertile? Because it's full of nutrients, right? But the thing is that when you use that land 6 years in a row, the 6th year, right? Year number 6, the land is not as fertile as year number 1, right? Because it lost already a lot of nutrients. And you're expecting that this 6th year will make you last for 3 years, because basically for the year number 6, number 7, since 7 you're not allowed to plant or harvest. But since you didn't plant anything, what do you do number 8? So it means that through this year number 6, where you have a soil that is not fertile, you're expecting HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make a nest. And the Shemitah is actually that. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu reminding us, listen, remember when you were born, when I created you in Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, I told you, well, it's very easy. You can eat from any tree, any fruit of any tree that you want, but one tree. The fruit of the tree of the dad, of the knowledge of good and evil, right? That's the only tree you're not allowed to eat. But because we did it, what happened? We fell into this world. And the first thing HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us is that because you fell into this world, you know what's going to happen in this world? There is a logic. There is a science. There is the laws of Teva, the laws of nature. You want to eat? You cannot just grab something and eat it. You have to work on the land. You have to plant, you have to sow, you have to water, you have to pray, you have to harvest, you have to separate the grains, you have to mill them, and you have to cook, and then you can eat. Whoa, it's a lot of work. And therefore, you might think that everything that you have is the fruit of your work. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the Shemitah that tells us, listen, where there is the laws of nature, I want you to know that, yes, you are submitted to the laws of nature because you're a human being, but I am not. I can do whatever I want. I am eternal and infinite, and my power is beyond the laws of nature. And therefore, even if it seems the most incoherent thing on earth that on year number 6, you're going to have enough to last for 3 years, yes, it's going to happen. And Baruch Hashem, it does happen. There are many stories of I don't remember the name in English, d'un paysan, comme on dit, of farmers who actually decided to keep the Shemitah, and through that had an abundance of food that is incredible. Was it yeah, on Shabbat we read a story about that, about the fennel. You remember? I'm going to share it with you. We have a class on Shabbat that is a class on Emunah, and we were speaking about the Shemitah last week also. And so it's the story of a farmer in Israel, and he lives in a kibbutz. He's the kibbutznik, not religious at all. And one day he goes to a Rav, or a Rav comes to him. And do you remember exactly the reason why he tells him? He's really striving to nourish his family. Nothing works. It's terrible. But this Rav comes and says to him, like, if you really want to have a bracha, keep the Shemitah. He says, what is the Shemitah? And he explains to him, it's like Shabbat, but for the land. He says, okay, you know what? I'm going to try. And he decides to keep the Shemitah. Now, around him, everybody starts mocking him. You're stupid. You're keeping Shemitah. Come on, like, you believe in those shtuyat? Be'emet. You're crazy. It's ridiculous. You're going to starve. I'm telling you, you're going to starve. And the truth is that he starts keeping the Shemitah, and he makes that decision. After the Shemitah, after the year of Shemitah, he sees his land, and he realizes, whoa, the land is really not in a good shape now. What am I going to do now? And he goes, because the Shemitah ended after the most important harvest of the cereals that he used to grow. He goes to some other friends, farmers, and he said, like, what can I grow? What can I grow? And there's one who says, you know what, like, I have those seeds of fennels. They're a little moldy, but you know what, like, that's the only thing we have. Everything else has already been planted. You wanted to keep the Shemitah, it's your problem. Now deal with that. Let's see what your God can make out of those seeds. But the seeds were really moldy and not very good. But he decides to plant them, and he says, Akadosh Baruch Hu, I know that I keep the Shemitah, and by that merit, you're going to make a miracle. I have no doubt. And it happens that he starts having a lot of fennels, so much fennel that the entire field is full. And all the farmers around say, what are you going to do with this fennel? It's terrible. There's so much fennel in Israel that year that the Ministry of Agriculture decides to stop the sale of fennel. Nobody is allowed to sell fennels. And so all his friends come to him and say, see, you trusted Hashem, you did the Shemitah, and look, now, not only you grew fennels, but you cannot do anything. You're not going to be even able to sell it for the Shemitah. At that moment, in Russia, Chernobyl happens. And there is a nuclear factory that explodes. And unfortunately, it pollutes all the waters down to Turkey. In Turkey, at that moment, because of the water that is now totally poisoned, right? They have to close down all the crops, all the fields, and namely one crop that is very important for them is the fennel, because they do a very famous alcohol with it. And so they try to find everywhere for fennel, and that's how this farmer actually sold his harvest of fennel 3 times the price that he would have sold in Israel. So he said, like, that's just one example, but there are so many examples of farmers who saw miracles happen, and it was really 3 times the price just for those 3 years, you know. So it's just like blinks, you know, that makes you think, okay, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, you're here, you're just showing me that I respected your laws, and this is a hak, like there's no explanation to the Shemitah.
I'm sorry. I remember a few years ago, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago, there was a farmer by the border of Gaza that kept Shemitah. Remember?
Yes, with the tunnels. Go ahead.
you go
No,
ahead.
no.
If you know the story,
Please.
you're a better storyteller.
No, I'm not a bit.
So basically, so the terrorists, they were planning, they made tunnels and they didn't know about the Shemitah. So they planned, let's say, to come on Monday and invade and come through Israel, through the tunnels and kidnap people. And then they show up there on a Monday and they're in shock. They see there's nothing there. Everything was cut. And because everything was cut, it was like high, I don't know, like wheat, plants, and it was cut. And then there were videos. So they got caught on the video that they came out from the tunnel and they got caught right away. And they didn't understand. And it's because of the Shemitah that many people the lives got saved. So basically the mitzvah of keeping Shemitah saved the lives of many Jewish people. This was before October 7th.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was on video.
You remember that story?
Yeah.
And that's how they discovered them.
Yeah, that was the only way.
Yeah.
But they understand because how comes, because it was not.
The tunnel was in the fields.
Yeah.
In the
Because
fields,
they cut the plants, they saw them coming out of the fields. Nothing was looking.
Why they cut it?
They came from Gaza into Israel. And
I know, but who cut it?
No, there was no cutting.
farmer.
the farmer.
There was nothing.
Because it was not the first
They
Shemitah.
cut, let's say it was the beginning of Shemitah.
Yeah. Because he decided, that farmer, to keep the Shemitah, so before it starts, they got rid of everything.
They cut everything.
And the next day, the terrorists came out from that. Okay, so it's very interesting to see that the Shemitah is actually a mitzvah that is showing us that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is there for us, and he takes over us whenever things slip out of our hands. When it's not in our control, don't worry, Hashem is in control. There's a beautiful mashal that I shared with you 1,000 times for those who are with me sometimes. So I don't know if I'm going to repeat myself, but I love this mashal. It's the story of Shlomo. Shlomo it's a mashal, so it's a parable. It's not a real story, because you're going to say, "Whoa, she drank too much wine tonight." Shlomo is a Jew, and he lives next to the ocean, and every single day he does hitbodedut by the ocean on the beach. So he goes, he walks outside, and he speaks with Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And all his life, whenever he walked like that on the shore, he spoke with Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and he saw 4 prints of feet on the floor. He would speak Hakadosh Baruch Hu, you know, today I was so happy, I was able to meet my future wife, and it happened that her name is Esther. Moshe, alors Shlomo, j'ai dit, non, c'est pas grave. Okay, alors Shlomo, and her name is Miriam, and I'm very happy. I can't wait to meet her parents. We're going to get married, Bezrat Hashem. And as he tells his life like that to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, he looks back and he sees 4 footprints on the sand. Every single day he comes back. So next day he comes, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, I met the parents, they're amazing, we're going to get married. And every day he comes back and he pours his heart to Hakadosh Baruch Hu like that on the shore of on the seashore. And they get married, and the one day his wife Miriam gets sick. And so he comes to speak with Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And he walks along the seashore like that. And he says to Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we had such bad news, but I know that everything is in your hands. That's my son. I know that everything is in your hands, and I'm not scared. I know that everything will be fine. But unfortunately, months pass and things are not fine. And he comes, and with tears in his eyes, he cries out to his creator, Hashem, please. Sorry, we're Tunisian, so he's probably going to call a third time. Because Tunisian, they like to repeat many times the same thing. So he's, Mama, Mama, Mama. Yes, okay. So he comes back to the seashore. He walks and he pours his heart. Akadosh Baruch Hu, she's in such a difficult situation. I beg you, please, please, show me a sign. Show me that you're here. Show me that you're helping her and that you're on her side. And he looks behind himself, and he sees only 2 footprints. And he starts getting worried. Hashem, where are you? Where are you? I see that she's getting worse and you're not here with me. Have you abandoned me? What did I do for you to abandon me? I don't understand. And he goes back, and the next day again, he comes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I beg you, show me that you're here. He turns around and he sees again only 2 footprints. And unfortunately, the situation goes worse and worse. And he comes back. And one day he says to Hashem, listen, all my life, I came here. I saw you walking next to me. I saw the footprints on the sand. And today, when I need you the most, when everything is slipping out of my hands, when I'm not in control of anything, you're not here. And then Hashem speaks to him and he says, Shlomo, don't you understand? Those footprints are not yours. These are mine. Because as you are so desperate and as you're in this moment of suffering, I am holding you in my arms. I'm taking you in my arms. And that's why those are just my footprints. We have to understand, when the Shemitah makes us understand that whenever we lost control, whenever we're in a situation that is so scary, because it happens to all of us at different levels, but we all have our nisyonot. Whether it's to find a job, whether it's to find a husband, whether it's to try to get pregnant, whether it's that once the baby is born is difficult, there's always a different challenge, whatever it is. But in each moment, we have to feel that Hashem is actually there. He's actually hugging us. And that's the moment where he's not only hugging us, but he's taking us on top of the mountain, taking us closer to him, because the top of the mountain represents the closeness with Hashem. There is a story that we tell during the period of the Omer, is a story of Rabbi Akiva and his wife Rachel. We count the Omer and we don't listen to the music during the Omer until Lag BaOmer, that was last Thursday night and Friday, because 24,000 students of a big rabbi, maybe the biggest rabbi of all times, named Rabbi Akiva, died during an epidemic during that period of Omer. And it stopped on the 34th day of the Omer. And therefore, we celebrate Lag BaOmer, and then we stop the signs of mourning. So we're allowed to listen to music, unless you're Chabad. I didn't know that, but Chabad do not listen to music until Shavuot. Only on Lag BaOmer do they listen to music, but not during the rest of the time. When Sephardim, we do. So we can now listen to music. But the story of Rabbi Akiva,
It's music in radio or live music? We can't hear.
both live music or music on the radio. You can listen to a cappella, which is made only with the mouth, but
No instruments.
no instruments. Besides now, because now we are after Lag Baomer. So Rachel, so Rabbi Akiva was actually not a rabbi at first. The story tells us that he was a shepherd, and he was a very, very humble person who had no education. He was really a shepherd living in the Rabbi Akiva. He was living in Israel, and he was living in the domain of Kalba Savoie, who was a very rich landlord. Kalba Savoie had a beautiful daughter, beautiful inside out. Her name was Rachel. And Rachel and Akiva, the shepherd, fell in love, so to say. And Rachel, who was like a little Jewish princess, let's say, decided that she would marry Akiva. But Akiva, as you know, didn't have any education. He didn't know the Aleph Bet. He didn't know how to read. He was a shepherd, and he was almost 40. He was 40 years old. So he was far from being a good match for the daughter of such a big landlord as Kalba Savoie. So Kalba Savoie said, if you get married with him, forget about me and forget about your heritage. You'll have to leave the house and the palace and everything. And she said to Akiva, I will marry you, but you have to learn Torah. And so at first he said, how can I learn Torah? I'm 40 years old. I'm an old man. So to say at that time, like 40 was old. Now it's super young. So he was a shepherd, and he was traveling with his cattle until he went to a river, and he sat next to the river meditating, and he saw that there was a stone, and that stone had a hole, and he said, oh, look at this hole. I'm wondering what can have made that hole in this stone. The stone is so hard. It's such a hard material. What could have created this hole in that stone? And suddenly he listens to a drop of water, drop, another drop, another drop. And he actually looks at the stone, and he sees that the hole is full of water. And he realizes that this hole has been made just by the water, repeatedly dropping and dropping at the same place over and over again, maybe for years, on that stone. And he says, if that water was able to make a hole in that stone that is such a hard material, how can Torah cannot enter my neshama? And so he goes back to Rachel, and he says, Rachel, you know what? Deal. Let's get married. I'll get married to you, and I'll learn Torah. And so Rachel leaves the house of her father, the comfortable and very luxurious house, and goes and live in a very poor manner as the wife of a shepherd. And he goes to the little Talmud Torah. He sits with kids who are Kita Aleph, so 5, 6 years old, and learn Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, right? And he's patiently learning and learning and learning. At one point, he graduated Kita Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, and he's ready for yeshiva. And his wife says, you know what? Now it's time for you to go to yeshiva. Go and come back only when you are really like a Talmid Chacham. Imagine the sacrifice that it was for her. She left a palace. She lived a very, very poor life. And now she was going to be on her own without a husband. Her husband went. He became a Talmid Chacham. And 12 years after, he said, I'm going to go back to my wife and to my family. And as he was coming back, he overheard a conversation. Rachel, who had been working with her hands and all her might for 12 years to maintain the family, was having a conversation with a neighbor, and the neighbor said, "Look at you! Look at you! Look, you're the daughter of Kabasavua. Your husband abandoned you. He left you like that for during 12 years, and look who you became, this poor lady." And she says, "Listen, my husband didn't abandon me. He went to study Torah, and if he was coming back today to tell me I'm stopping learning Torah because now I can be with you and I know enough Torah, I would tell him, go back and learn again for 12 more years." And so he doesn't even tell her that he's here. He turns around and go back to yeshiva for 12 more years. 24 years have passed. And he became a Rabbi Akiva, that Gaon, really like a giant of Torah. Okay? He has 24,000 students, Talmidim. And they all come back to his native place in order to give kavod to Rachel. Everybody's gathering in the city. "Oh, Rabbi Akiva is coming. Oh, Rabbi Akiva is visiting the city. Let's all gather." Everybody gathers around, and Rachel is trying to find her way in the crowd in order to arrive to see her husband. And then Rabbi Akiva tells all his students, "Everything that I have and everything that you have is hers. She is the one thanks to whom this Torah exists." And the following day, there's an epidemic that starts amongst the students of Rabbi Akiva. 700 students per day die. Imagine, God forbid. Remember the images of, I don't know why, the image of the hospitals in Spain or Italy, early 2020s, where they didn't know what to do with the corpses. Like they were organizing outdoor in tents because they didn't know what to do to keep away from the epidemic to spread, right? Imagine 700 people every single day. 24,000 students died. And as we said, the epidemic stopped on Lag BaOmer, the day after Lag BaOmer. Okay? Can you imagine the situation Rabbi Akiva went through? He comes from nothing. He becomes the Gdolei Ador. He becomes the Gadol Ador. Okay? He has 24,000 students. It's a successful story. It's the most amazing story. And yet, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes them disappear. All of them. He could have turned to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, "I don't understand. You took me up to the highest point of your mountain. I was the closest to you. And now you're bringing me down? You're taking everything away from me? Why?" Right? We do that sometimes for less than this. Thank God we don't go through those challenges. But so many times we get something, and as you said, Chava, when you get something and it's taken away from you, it's so unfair. It breaks your heart. But Rabbi Akiva doesn't even mention one word. He doesn't question Hashem's plans. What does he do? He goes in the south of Eretz Israel and he starts over. He starts over. He's going to teach Torah again to 4 new students who are going to become the Gdolei Ador of the following generation. We have Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes, which Hilula was a week ago. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which Hilula is on Lag BaOmer. Rabbi Yeshua Bar Ilai, Rabbi Yosef, so it's 5, sorry, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, right? He starts all over again. And through those 5 people, the Torah that we have has continued to shine. He understood that when Hashem is taking us into such a suffering moment, it's not a punishment. It's just for us to understand that He is controlling everything. Sometimes the pain, and again, there's no comparison of pains. We all go through very different challenges. For some people, it might seem like very little pain, but for others, it is true pain. We all have challenges that are how do you say, like tailor-made. But those moments where it feels unbearable, that's when we let go. Because it's so unbearable that you have no choice. There's no more holding it. That's the moment that we don't want to suffer. That's the moment where we don't want to look at. That's the moment that we don't want to live. But that's the moment where we lift our eyes towards the mountain and we say, Shir LaMa'alot. Shir LaMa'alot, Esaenai ele harim. Me'ain yavo Ezri. Where is my help going to come from? Ezri me'im Hashem oseh shamayim va'aretz. It will come from Hashem. If He created the earth and the land, the ocean, is He not able to help me in this moment? Looking at the mountain in this moment, being able to be brought up, to elevate ourselves from the perspective that we have when we are in the Nisayon, and be able to have a higher perspective and see, okay, you know what? There is after. There is an after. I want to share and I'm going to post that because it's, sorry. Also go through national suffering, national trauma. Right now, Am Israel is suffering as a nation. It's not individual suffering only. And I think that it has to make us wake up, and it does make us wake up. You know, all of us were in contact with many women, Baruch Hashem. I have the chance to work with many different women. And since October 7th, I saw so many people who never really considered themselves as Jewish as their first identity. You know, they were first French, they were first Italian, they were first, even Israeli, but they were not considering themselves first Jewish. But the fact that people pointed at them as, no, you're not that feminist, you're not our lobbyist of feminists, you are a Jew. You are not this cardiologist, you are a Jew. You are not this whatever, you are a Jew, first and foremost. People have started asking themselves, but what does it mean to be a Jew? Why? Why do they see me as a Jew and I'm totally assimilated? And I think it's a way to wake up. What is our identity? And as we are closer to Shavuot, it's about time that we think, when did we become Am Israel? Why is everybody dancing in the streets of New York yesterday in Manhattan? Am Israel Chai, Am Israel Chai, Am Israel, Am Israel. What is Am Israel? Am Israel was born on Shavuot. Before that, we were the Bnei Israel. We were not one. We were not Am. We were not Am Echad. When did we become one? When we received the Torah. The Torah. The Torah makes us Am Israel. And really, it's so important to realize that. We think, and I grew up like that, so I really understand. We think we can be a Jew without the Torah. We think we can be a Jew because we go to shul on Yom Kippur. I grew up like that. Most of my family in France is like that. It doesn't exist. What makes us Am Israel is the Torah. And what keeps us alive is the Torah. And what brings us together is the Torah. And it's about time to see that the Torah is not a book of laws that is so difficult to live through. It is a book that teaches us how to love our fellows. ואהבת לרעך כמוך, זה כלל גדול בתורה. This is the most important principle of the Torah. To hold hands. And this is one of the words that comes back very often in the Parasha Bechukotai is the word hands. Why? Because in Bechukotai, the Torah teaches us how to be there for our brothers, how to help our fellows. And how do you help your fellow? Somebody fails, what do? You look at him? No. You pull your hand and you help him up. Somebody needs something to eat. You take and you give him. It's the hand that connects us. It's so important to realize the hands connects us. And the Sfat Emet, he says, you know how we're going to go on that mountain? You know how we're going to be closer to Hashem? You know how it's going to happen that we're going to be Zoche to receive the Torah and to be close to Hashem? It's by holding hands. The gematria of Yad, hand, is 14. And the gematria of hands is 28. Two hands is koach, strength. When you hold somebody else's hands, it gives you strength. When you're together in adversity, hand in hand, it gives you strength. If you cannot make it on your own, you take the hand of someone and you pull him. We're going to make it together. We're going to go up the mountain together. I'm not letting go of you. Holding hands in adversity is so important. And the Sfat Emet tells us this is exactly how Hashem wants us to be in our lives. This is what the Torah teaches us every step of the way. Make space for the other. Consider, be sensitive to the other. And comment on dit tendre sa main?
Land your hand.
Hand your hand?
To land.
Lend your hand to your fellow. Right? And why? Because again, the Sfat Emet, who is that? Sorry. Yeah. Again, the Sfat Emet explains, he says, you know why it's so important to be hands in hands? It's not only because of the gematria. It's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he has a plan. He wants to send you the solution to your problem. But the thing is that he doesn't send the shefa like that. He sends the shefa a little bit here, there. And that's why, for instance, we need to give tzedakah. This is an example, very, very concrete example. Why is it that someone is going to receive $1,000, the other one only 100? And he has to give 100 to the other. Hashem made it like that. It's an example, it's a parable for us to understand that it's not only the money, it's for everything. I own something that belongs to you. that is part of your Yeshua to you, and you hold something that belongs to me. And only if we connect to each other will there be that kli, that recipient, whole, in order to receive it. It's as if, like when we were little and we were connecting pieces of electric chain, you need to connect all the pieces for the energy to flow. It's exactly the same. For the Shefa to arrive, for the Yeshua to arrive, we need to connect hands in hands. So I think that it's a beautiful lesson. It's a beautiful lesson of this parashot, that everything that we breathe, everything that we eat, everything that we receive is not the fruit of our efforts, is the fruit of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we feel that everything that we have is slipping away from our hands, this is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is actually taking over, supporting us, and holding us. And for us to have the Yeshua, we need to be there for one another. We need to be sensitive to the other. We cannot make it on our own. And nobody can make it on our own, on his own. And this is the strength of Am Yisrael. And this is also why when you hear a story of a soldier that passed, of a hostage that is still in Gaza, or a mom who suffers, or a baby who is in the hospital, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts in your own limbs. Why? Because it's part of who we are. Am Yisrael, Arevim ze lazeh, we're all interconnected. All of us, we're interconnected. So we have to be there for one another. And when we are there for one another, this is when it arrives. And this is when we see the miracle happen. So thank you, Anais, again for hosting us tonight. May Bezrat Hashem, the neshama of Chana Bat Aziza, and Raphael Chaim Shlomo have an aliyah, Bezrat Hashem. And may you have only brachot, only good news. May you continue to be surrounded by friends that you love, and may you continue to be that living example of what it is to be a part of Am Yisrael, to be there for others, always, always there for others, always lending your hand to your friends. Thank you so much.